I was the person nobody noticed, and I was perfectly fine with that. Until the day I realized nobody noticing meant nobody valuing. My position was called Operations Coordinator, a title that meant different things to different people. To me, it meant I did everything nobody else wanted to do. I worked for a nonprofit focused on community education. About 80 employees across 3 office locations. Everyone knew my name. Everyone was friendly. But nobody really knew what I did. For 7 years, I organized. I systematized. I fixed problems before they became visible. I created processes that made everyone else's jobs easier. I managed databases. I coordinated schedules. I maintained vendor relationships. I handled logistics for events that hundreds of people attended. I was the connective tissue, invisible but essential. Most people only noticed me when something went wrong, when they couldn't find a file, when a vendor hadn't been contacted, when an event didn't run smoothly. Then suddenly I existed. Then suddenly people needed me. Then suddenly I was important. But the moment the problem was solved, I disappeared again. For years, I didn't mind. I genuinely enjoyed the work. I liked solving puzzles. I liked building systems. I liked the quiet satisfaction of knowing how much easier everyone else's jobs were because of my work. Then we got a new executive director. His name was Martin. He was brought in to energize the organization. He came from a corporate background. He had big ideas about efficiency and accountability. He wanted to know what everyone was doing and why. Most importantly, he wanted to see measurable outputs. For the first time, I had to explain my value. Not to myself, to him. I prepared a presentation. I documented everything I did. I showed metrics, hours saved, processes improved, problems prevented. I showed him spreadsheets. I thought he would be impressed. Instead, he seemed confused. He asked how much revenue my role generated. I told him that wasn't how support functions worked. I helped other people generate revenue. He nodded. Then he asked if my work could be automated. I told him some of it could. Some of it required human judgment. He seemed to be calculating something. Over the following months, Martin started asking questions about my salary, about my productivity, about whether we really needed operations coordination. He suggested I take on additional responsibilities. Different work, more visible work, work that had direct impact on the organization's mission. I was happy to help, but I asked who would handle the operational work. He said someone else could learn it. I felt a chill, because I had seen what happens when operational work is ignored. Chaos. But I didn't argue. I moved into a new role, one that was higher profile, one that looked better on paper. One that meant the operational systems I had built were no longer being maintained. For the first 2 weeks, everything seemed fine. Then the cracks appeared. A major event had been scheduled for the wrong date. Vendor confirmations hadn't been sent. A database hadn't been backed up in months. Event logistics fell through. Nobody knew who was supposed to handle what. People started panicking, and suddenly people remembered that I used to handle all this. They came to me asking for help. But I was fully occupied in my new role. I explained the situation to Martin. I offered to document what needs to be done, to train someone. He said to just handle it, manage both roles. So I tried. I worked nights and weekends. I documented everything. I trained whoever was available. For a month, I carried 2 full-time jobs. Then I couldn't anymore. I came to Martin and said something had to change. I couldn't do both. He seemed annoyed. He said if I was struggling, maybe I wasn't the right fit for the new role. That was the moment I understood. I wasn't valued, I was just useful. And the moment I became inconvenient, I became disposable. I spent the next week making a decision. I could continue sacrificing myself, keep my job, keep working nights and weekends, hope Martin eventually realized what I was doing, or I could leave. I left. I gave 2 weeks' notice. I documented everything. I wrote procedures. I trained people. I tried to make the transition as smooth as possible. Martin didn't try to convince me to stay. He didn't ask why I was leaving. He didn't offer a counter-proposal. He just accepted my resignation and found someone cheaper to replace me. For about a month, there was relative calm. Then things started falling apart. Events weren't scheduled correctly. Vendor relationships collapsed. Databases weren't maintained. The website went down. Financial systems got confused. Nobody had documented passwords. Files were lost. The organization started missing important deadlines. Board members started asking questions. Then Martin called me. He wanted me to consult, help them rebuild the systems I had created. He offered a significant hourly rate. I could work from home, just a few hours a week. Easy money. I said no. He was shocked. He asked why. I told him that I had spent 7 years building these systems. I had documented everything. I had tried to train people. But the organization had decided I wasn't essential. Now they were learning the hard way that I was. But I wasn't going to help fix problems that could have been prevented. If they valued the operational work enough to pay for consultants, they should have valued it enough to pay me when I was doing it. He got angry. He said I was being unprofessional, holding the organization hostage. I said I was finally being professional with my own career. I hung up. Over the next 3 months, the organization hemorrhaged. Good employees left because systems weren't in place. The board removed Martin. Several contracts were lost. Eventually, someone hired a consulting firm to rebuild everything from scratch. It cost them tens of thousands of dollars. Money I could have earned. Money they could have saved. If they had just valued my work when I was doing it. I heard through the grapevine that the organization eventually stabilized, that someone new was brought in to run operations, someone who was visible, who attended meetings, who reported directly to leadership, someone who was finally recognized as essential. I was genuinely happy for that person, but I also felt something else. Vindication, because the organization had finally learned that invisible work is still work, that support functions are essential, that you don't realize how important someone is until they're gone. Years later, I work for a different organization, one where support staff are visible, where operational excellence is recognized and compensated, where invisible work is still invisible, but the people doing it are seen, and that makes all the difference. Looking back on my time at the nonprofit, I learned something. Never be so good at being invisible that nobody notices when you're gone. Speak up about what you do. Make your work visible. Don't assume that people understand the value of prevention. They won't. Not until something breaks. And by then, it's too late.